Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
My name's Dean, I'm a recovering addict, and this is Inside Addiction. My guest today is the Executive Director for the New York Council on Problem Gambling, Jim Maney. Jim, welcome to the show.
Dean, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Jim, let's start out, as far as problem gambling and gambling as an addiction, you don't hear as much about that as the substance abuse side of it, of alcohol and drugs. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say, actually, my understanding is gambling has the highest suicide rate of all addictions, so it's almost like the silent killer.
You are correct about that. We often call it the hidden addiction. And why do we call that? If you take a look at alcoholism, usually we know who's alcoholic. We usually know because they've been drunk, they've fallen down in public, they've thrown up, they've crashed their car.
They've gotten a DWI.
DWI,
they get
it's
arrested.
in the paper, exactly. But for gambling, we don't see that. There aren't the effects right off the bat. In fact, you can lie about that you're making money. You go to Saratoga, play the horses, and someone asks you how you did.
I hit it big.
Say, 1,000s. How would they know the difference? And that's the challenge that we face. It is hidden, and that's why we need everybody. We have to raise the awareness for every New Yorker to take a look at this to help, because it is such a hard addiction to deal with.
Now, Jim, you speak of New York, and I tried to find some current statistics, and the most recent statistics that I was able to find are 7 years old. They go back to 2006, and according to those statistics, 5% of New York adults aged 18 and over experience a gambling problem in the past year. That's over 500,000 New Yorkers. 42% purchase lottery tickets at least once a week. 14% bet on a sports at least once a week. 12% played cards for money at least once a week. 5% gambled at a casino on a weekly basis. Males being 3 times as likely as females to have a gambling problem, and 28% also experienced a substance abuse problem in the past year. I want to talk about the connection between problem gambling and substance abuse, as well as the connection between problem gambling and mental health. Again, as much as we can from statistics 7 years old in 2006, what do you think about those numbers?
Well, I think, Dean, if you ever visited a casino, if you ever took a look at the amount of folks that are betting on the lottery, if you take a look at what happens when Mega Millions gets up to be $500, $600 million, it seems like the whole world is aware of the gambling. So we're well aware that most New Yorkers gamble in some form or shape. We're also aware that the statistics nationwide is probably 1.5% to 3% of problem pathological gamblers. We also know that New Yorkers are a lot different than folks from Kansas, right? So we're pretty sure that the rate for problem gambling is, no matter if it's 4%, 3%, 2%, that doesn't really matter. It's out there. Many New Yorkers are affected by this. And more, we believe, will be affected as a result of more opportunities and more availabilities.
Sure. You talk about, in particular in New York, for example, the casino referendum, where they're talking about 7 new casinos. Is that something that really has an impact on the overall issue of problem gambling, or is that just a myth that people go to casinos and you know, if they put 7 new casinos in? Because you talk about problem gambling, but in the sense of gambling as an addiction, you hear most of the time as gambling almost being a solution to a problem.
Gambling, I've been in the addiction field for many, many years, and gambling and problem gambling is the most complex issue of them all. We have state government involvement, we have private, public relationships in the casino industries, we have the internet availability. So when we talk about an increase in gambling, We're having an increase in gambling every day. If you take a look at what's happening on the internet, by the time you and I are done today, 3 more websites will have started as a result of internet gambling to get more people to gamble. And we also know about our technology these days. More and more people are hooked to their machines.
Absolutely.
And the easiest thing to do now is to gamble online. In the old days, you think about it, if you were a sports bettor, you had to know the local bookie at the local bar. If not, you didn't gamble. Now, you don't need that at all. In fact, the easiest thing in the world to do is press those 3 buttons and you got the Bills tomorrow night against the Browns. Got all the action you want all the time. And in fact, it's getting faster and quicker all the time. Real life gambling after every play, what play you want to gamble on, every score. Yeah. It's getting faster, quicker all the time. So what we see, Dean, is that every time there's more opportunity and availability, there's going to be more problems. We don't know to what extent it's going to be, but we know that's going to happen because research always shows that, be it in alcohol, be it in substance abuse, be it whatever. More availability, more opportunity creates more problems.
In the ease of it, like you said, I mean, it's a matter of you could be on your iPhone in your office.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge that we see about all this is we talk about social norms a lot.
Sure.
Right now, the norm is that gambling is perceived as a harmless behavior for most people. And for most people it is. But we're forgetting for some people it's not. And we have to do everything we possibly can to protect and serve those folks that may be at risk. And we know today that our adolescents are at risk, our seniors are at risk, and certain populations are at risk that are living closest to, say, casinos.
So let's talk about the differences between the adolescents, the college kids, and the seniors. Okay. What are some, unique characteristics, facts about each one, risk factors?
Sure.
Let's start with the adolescents, the kids.
Okay. You think about the kids today. I went into, early in the year, I went into a 5th or 6th grade class at Farnsworth in Guilderland. And I went in, I introduced myself to the kids in the class, and I said, my name is Jim Maney, Executive Director, New York Council on Problem Gambling. And I said, how many of you kids drank this weekend? Their hands went down. I said, how many kids drugged this weekend? Because if they raised their hand, right, we know the SWAT teams would come in there, right, and they'd be like down the counselor's office calling your parents.
Sure.
But I asked the question, how many kids gambled this weekend? Not one hand, but 2 hands go up because the behavior is okay. The norm is it's okay for kids to gamble, right? So they're gambling on what? They're gambling on Super Bowl squares, March Madness, the lottery. They're gambling on fantasy sports. They're gambling on Texas Hold'em. They're gambling on whatever, raffle tickets at the school, at the football game. Why? Because no one's perceiving that that could be a gateway to problem. We also know in the alcohol and substance use research, the earlier you start, right, drinking or drugging, the better chance you have to have an addiction. And so the reverse is, the later the onset of starting something, the better off that you won't have an addiction. But what we're doing, it seems like right now, we're making an environment where it's okay for our kids to start earlier and earlier. And in fact, kids aren't learning that it's harmful behavior. Kids are learning that it's a good behavior. You might as well do it. And that's what we have to change.
And you're talking, just correct me if I misheard you, you're talking 5th and 6th graders.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Think about the first time kids are getting scratch-off lottery tickets.
At their birthday party?
Birthday party. And so what is the message? The message isn't, you shouldn't be gambling at an early age. It could be bad for you. It is, you know what, sweetie? I want you to gamble, and I'm going to teach you how, and here's your first one, and let daddy be the first or mom be the first one to give you your first gambling apparatus.
And then I'll even cash it in for you because you can't cash it in.
Darn straight.
College kids.
You think about gambling is perfect for that age group. We talk about impulsivity, right? And that's what problem gambling is. You press that button on the slot machine, you scratch off, you pick them things, boom, boom. It's a quick activity. Why it works for that age group, adolescents, teenagers, young adults, is they want high activity, high excitement for little effort, right? So if you think about it, why do video games for these guys? Right? Because they can sit in a chair and they can play all day and night and they're blowing up the world and going crazy, right? And they're getting complete Russian high. And that's what gambling is. You sit back, you watch the game, hearts pounding, boom, boom. Yeah. Did he score? Did he not score, right? For little activity.
Sure. People actually have their own, don't sit in that seat when the Giants are playing.
Completely. So all these things fits in perfect. And the group that I like to talk about a lot are the seniors. And I'll tell you a quick story about the seniors. I was doing a talk up in Turning Stone. There was the New York Aging Society had a conference, and it was going to be at Turning Stone Casino. And so one of the people on the conference committee said, you know, if we're having it at the casino, maybe we ought to have a workshop on problem gambling. So let's call Jim Maney. So they called me up and said, will you come do a workshop? So my workshop was at 9:30 in the morning. And there was probably 500-600 people at this conference. And maybe 8 came to my workshop, right? And so I said, all right, what do you guys want to learn here? And one woman raised her hand and said, you know, I want to be able to taste it and feel it. I want to know what it's like if I have to deal with a problem gambler. I said, okay, you know what we got to do? Let's get up. I said, let's go down the casino floor. So at 9:40 by now, we go down the casino floor, and there's probably 1,000 seniors on the casino floor.
At 9 o'clock in the morning.
9:40 in the morning. Let's just be, so yeah, about 1,000 people, and they're just milling around, gambling. Some are eating, drinking coffee, a lot are gambling. So we go back up, and I say, okay, what'd you guys see? Oh, wasn't that nice? They were there, they were with each other, it was social,
Yeah.
They had something to do, it was clean and safe. I said, if we went across the bar at 9:30 in the morning, it was 1,000 seniors, what would you have said? Look at all the drunks. So I said, what's the difference here? Why are we saying it's okay for our seniors to gamble, but it's not okay for them to drink?
Yeah.
Right? It is because we are unaware. We are not educated about it. We know that they are a very vulnerable age group because we've been made to believe that gambling is a harmless behavior. And you think about it, how many seniors have lost every cent they've got? Right? How many? They go in there, they lose, they're bored, they have no place to go. They might have lost their husband.
They're lonely.
They're lonely. Machines give them a place. You think if you take a look at the slot machines, and not just getting on the slot machines, but take a look at it. Regis Philbin's on some of the machines.
The Wheel of Fortune.
They know Regis, right?
Yeah.
They watch it on TV all the
Jeopardy.
time. Exactly. It's a safe, secure place. And that's one of the places for folks to go, especially when we get senior. But you think about it. Folks that say are starting to have dementia, or folks that are starting to have some other things, it can't be the healthiest place for them, right? Some don't even know what they're doing sometimes. They sit in the machine, put their money in, who knows what's going on. I think we have to make sure that we educate them. We have to educate the seniors centers that are sending them. We have to educate whoever's the bus trips are coming from. We have to help these folks.
Yeah, the Yankee Trails World Tours.
Right.
Let's go to Foxwoods. Let's go to Turning Stone.
Right. And so, we always thought if we could get even up on the television monitor something about, okay, you're going to the casino today. We want you to be safe. Here's research information. Here's our, contact. But really caring about those people, because if you take a look at, even if the percentage is 2%,
Sure.
1 or 2 of those people on that bus road may be having difficulties right now.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we have to help. We have to do all these things to help folks out.
The incidence between problem gambling and substance abuse.
Okay. Now you think about it. We'll talk about drinking first. What do they give you free at a casino? Free alcohol.
Free drinks.
Why do they do that? Why do they give you free drinks?
Well, that was a quick. Well, that was quick moving right along. Yeah, the connection between substance abuse and problem gambling. It's hand in hand.
Completely. And the people know it. You think about it. There's kind of 2 types of gamblers. There's the action gambler and there's the escape gambler, we'll say. And you go to Saratoga, and when the horses are coming down the stretch and people are out in the, watching at the finish line, they're not going, come on 4, you can run 4.
Yeah.
Come on 4.
They're screaming.
They're screaming, aren't they? Yeah. At the slot table, right?
Like the horse
come
can
on,
hear
7, right? They're going crazy, right? They're pumped. They're getting the action. Watching the football games, it's action.
Yeah.
The field is going to make, did he catch it? All that stuff. And then the other side is the escape gamblers, the scratch-offs, lonely, isolated, slot machines where you're just playing by yourself hour after hour. And if you think about it, the perfect scenario in a casino is, ready? Press the button, smoke the cigarette, drink the drink.
Yeah.
Press the button, smoke the cigarette.
I need another arm.
Press the button, drink the cigarette. Right?
Yeah.
It all goes in. It all goes in, and they're so very much alike. We've seen many times when I ran an outpatient Gamblers Treatment Program, a lot of the folks in '96, we'll start there, were mostly middle-class white guys that played the horses.
Yeah.
That's the folks. We didn't have casinos yet in New York. We didn't have a variety of things. And that's who came on. And a bunch of them were in recovery from drinking, right? And they found a new place to play.
Now we're getting into transfer addiction.
Exactly. And so you think about it, and once again, right now, right, you think gambling is so sociably acceptable that, most people do not have problems. And since we can hide it better, so.
The connection between problem gambling and mental illness.
Yeah. It's funny, when you take a look and dealing with some of the folks that are mentally ill, they don't have the capacity to really deal with, cognitively to understand the odds, cognitively to understand that the odds are against you, what the chances are, right? So they don't have the ability to really deal with that. But if you think about depression, right? If you lost all your money, how would you feel? Depressed, right?
Yeah.
So if you're depressed, one of the ways to become undepressed is win a lot of money, you think, right? Depression, as we know, as you mentioned earlier, problem pathological gambling has the highest rate for suicide of any addiction. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is because you're helpless, hopeless, harmful. And usually what happens with problem gambling, pathological gambling, is people don't see it along the way.
There's no physical signs. I mean, if you take alcoholism, you can smell it, you can see it, you know if somebody's hungover.
You do.
Weed, see it in their eyes, smell it. If you look at the substance abuse aspect of like crystal meth, Faces of Meth campaign, you can see somebody that's under the influence or going on that downward spiral.
Right. Gambling, no. Gambling, not so much. And yet, even though you do go through the whole withdrawal process of it,
Sure.
if you see it, but you're right. That's a challenge. Why it's so hard to assess folks out there. So hard for family members to take a look at it. Family members may know that their spouse is gambling, but you'll never know how much.
Sure.
And in drinking, we know that because eventually they pass out, they throw up, do a variety of things, right? You don't know if they drank 20 beers or 18, but that's not the thing. But for gambling, we don't know if they bet 200 or 2,000. We don't know if they lost 2,000 or 20,000. And if you think about how quick you can lose $20,000, right?
Real quick, because if you lose 10, double or nothing.
Completely, right? That's what you have to do. And that's what a gambler does. And so the hardest thing that we've seen in dealing with problem gambling is that when people lost, that's the way we keep score. That's the way people think it's just about money, but it's not. But that's how you keep score if you're winning or losing. We've never seen anybody come into treatment that's winning, all right? Okay.
Why would you?
Well, and that's the problem too. So even you're thinking of family. Someone owes $10,000. They've lost $10,000. They can't pay their rent. They can't even get food, right? Wife's yelling at him or vice versa. Husband yelling at the wife. The family's distraught. And he goes out and wins $12,000. Does he have a problem anymore?
Well, that's an interesting question. Does he have a problem anymore? Well, it was problematic when you were losing money, but let's go out to dinner. Let's go out to the jewelry store and get you something nice, honey.
And do you think, right? Do you think the wife will say, I don't want you to pay the rent with that gambling money, right?
Yeah.
I don't want you to pay that. I want to not have no electricity on like it was. Stop, right? No, what happens is you take the money and you pay off your stuff.
Makes everything better.
Right. And what makes it worse is that gambler knows now, right? He was down 10,000. So the pattern now is I can win it back eventually. Yeah. So next time when he gets down, because we know this is a progressive disorder, so next time when he gets down 20,000, he's not sweating that much because he knows it's going to happen again, and he'll win to 22 or 24,000, right? But we know it doesn't work that way, right? So then he gambles more, and now he's down 40,000, still thinking, eventually I'm going to win.
Sooner or later, I'm going to hit it.
He has to believe that. Yeah, the gambler has to believe that, because if they didn't, right, they'd have stopped, right? And so that's where the whole delusional thinking comes in. They have to convince themselves that the only way out of this mess is to continue to gamble. And we know when that happens, chasing that losses, going faster and faster and faster, that's when the trouble starts.
If I walk away now, next one is going to be the one that it I would have got
And then
the
how am I
money
going to
back.
pay this off what I owe? What happens about why this is such a challenge is because usually there's not the signs along the way. You know, you see like a bookkeeper, you
Yeah.
know, in the paper all the time, bookkeeper embezzles $380,000. How the heck did that happen?
I always wonder when I see the news and like so and so embezzled like 15 grand from the Little League club. It's like, who's checking their books?
No one is. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why
Where's the accountability?
That's why gamblers are in those fields. They are the bookkeepers. They are the treasurers. They are around the money. They have to, right? That availability of money keeps fuel in it. You know, like a bartender. If a bartender is able to drink at work and he's an alcoholic, he's loving it, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same idea. And the question is, so people know these folks that embezzle money. They know they gamble, but they don't know how much, you know? You'll see an obituary every once in a while on somebody. They like to go to the track, or one of their favorite places was Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You know, things of that nature. So we see them, but we don't know what. So the first sign of
and then in that same obituary, died suddenly.
oh yeah, yeah.
So there's the indication
And-
how it ended.
And for gamblers, say they owe X amount of money, $100,000. One of their options is suicide, right? If they have an insurance policy, they have a $100,000 insurance policy, guess what? They are better off, right? In their minds, they're better off dead than alive to their family.
Yeah.
You know that, right? And that's why a lot of them contemplate that and commit suicide.
And have done that actually in the parking lots of casinos.
Yes, all
which
over
is
places we don't
grossly underreported.
Yes. And that's the challenge with this.
What are some of the symptoms and signs beyond the obvious? The car's getting repoed, it's getting taken away on a flatbed. You know, you're getting the final payment notices. What are some of the symptoms and signs that someone may be able to ask themselves, or may be able to sit back and say, you know what, something just doesn't seem right, to be able to look at, because people are able to hide it for so long, it almost gets to the point of when it comes about, it's at that moment of crisis or point of no return.
The probably the three biggest ones that we like to take a look at is the preoccupation. You know, how much time and energy is spent around the gambling activity? Not necessarily just gambling. Like we'll take football. How much time are they spent before they're putting their bet in for the 1 o'clock game? Have been looking at it for 3 days? You know, the injury report.
Yeah, let me
the
look at
field
the
conditions.
stats.
What's the spread? Has it changed? What I got here? How much am I doing? The horse racing. Do we have the sheet for 2 days?
How's the turf?
Exactly.
Did it rain?
Everything. So preoccupation. Are we talking about gambling all the time? You know, that's one of the things. How many times are we having the poker game at our house? How many times are at work we're involved in the pools? We're sponsoring them. We're taking the money. We're doing all this. The preoccupation. The second one would be, has anybody ever, if we're asking ourselves, has anybody ever criticized me about my gambling? Right? Because if they had, that's a problem. All right? People always think, problem. No gambler is going to say it's a problem. Right? How do we find out it's a problem? How does the drunk driver find out that they're a problem?
When somebody tells them, when a cop pulls them over.
That becomes a problem, right? So that person doesn't think they have a problem, right? They just think they're driving drunk, right?
Yeah.
And they're pretty good at it. That's the mentality when you're delusional thought and you're an alcohol, you're drunk. Same thing gambling. It's a process. Losing's part of the whole deal. You know that. That's part of the gambling cycle. You have to lose. You can't win all the time, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing, are we lying about it? The moment someone's lying about it, then it's a problem.
Did you go to the track this weekend? Yeah. Did you win? Absolutely.
Over. Lying about it. You're involved in your significant relationship, lying to them about it to protect your gambling. All right? And so we always like to take a look at gambling. The gambler doesn't think they have a problem, but if it's problematic for a family member, a coworker, a friend, it's a gambling problem. All right? It's a gambling problem. Something needs to change. Either the gambler has to change, or the person's relationship with the gambler has to change. And we can help that to change. You know, if we'll just take a family member, man and wife. The man's gambling, well, we can help the woman protect herself.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to do. There's things you can do, credit cards, bill payment, all those things to protect yourself from getting in trouble. One of the things in New York, especially we see with couples, is when your credit card debt goes so high, the couple is responsible for it, right? So even if it's all the husband's gambling debt, and they find out one day, that's how it happens. One day you'll find out the bank called and says, what? We haven't paid our mortgage? Our second mortgage? I thought our house was paid off 4 years ago. We have a second mortgage? And these are true stories. Yeah. What do? That becomes, and that's when people are suicidal, homicidal. I mean, it really is, because it's a shock. It's not like, oh, he got drunk driving. Of course he got drunk driving. I've been driving drunk for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But gambling, all of a sudden, when the embezzlement happens and they find out, when the audit happens after 2 years, then bam, everybody knows about it. And that's when the shock comes, because they've been living a lie, like they don't have a problem for all these years, right? So that's why. So the gambler a lot of times will feel relief. Got busted in reality. But the wife, what happens to them? What happens to the family members when all of a sudden, they did what? They stole how much? So that's why it's a family thing all the way. We need all the help we possibly can about this.
Any other signs and symptoms?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of signs and symptoms. You know, one of the symptoms really is protecting your financial stuff. If you're in a household, say, right, and the man's always done the books, and the wife suspects something may go on, well, she's got to take a look at the books. Guess what? He's not going to let her, is he? A bookkeeper, guess what? People always say, well, they probably don't go to work. A bookkeeper goes to work every freaking day. You know why?
Because nobody else is going to do that job.
And if they do, guess what they're going to find out?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not taking the day off.
Not going to take the day. I have to protect that.
I haven't been on vacation.
Right? All those things. And that's why banks usually make their employees take 2 week vacation so they can go in and audit. They're smart in that way. You know, so we have to take a look at that. But the biggest thing when you ask that is really that preoccupation. And the second thing is, you know, almost like tolerance. Have they increased the amount of money they are betting? You know, if they were, you know, $1 better at one time, are they up to $5 now? You know, are they increasing the bets to sustain the thrill? You think about in drinking.
Yeah, there's another parallel to the substance abuse.
Completely.
Jim, a lot of good stuff today. Some resources and treatment options beyond, you know, the traditional GA. As far as the New York Council on Problem Gambling, how can someone get a hold of you? What kind of resources and services does your agency offer?
Sure. Probably the best way to get us is go on our website, www.nyproblemgambling.org. And on that, we have information for services, we have information for trainings, we have information for where everybody can get any type of help they need.
Advice, if someone's watching that think they may, or someone else that they know may have a problem with gambling, advice you would give that person?
Sure. Go on to our website, call the helpline, talk to a trained clinician about it, get some information. You know, they'll talk to you about it. A lot of folks are scared to call because they think they have to have a problem. We say anything that's bothering you is a problem. Yeah. We want to help you on it. We want to give you the information. We want to educate you so you can make healthy decisions. So please give us a call.
Jim, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, it's Dean from Inside Addiction, reminding you if you or someone you care about needs help for drug, alcohol, or gambling addiction, you can call the New York State Helpline at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. You can also visit our website online anytime at InsideAddiction.org. Go to Find Treatment and Help, which will take you to resources and contact information for treatment facilities across the country. You can watch our entire series at youtube.com/InsideAddiction or right here on this channel.
Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.